Today's episode of Finding Demo Surf Fishing is being brought to you by The Sinker Guy. Head on over to thesinkerguy.com and take a look in The Sinker Guy's shop. He pours all his own lead and has lots of different options to choose from besides sinkers. He also has fishing rigs, fish bites, and other things available for your needs. Head on over to, again, thesinkerguy.com and get your stuff all set up to go fishing. You've heard this company name before if you've listened to Finding Demo Surf Fishing. I mean, how could you not? I've talked about it a bunch of times. He's sponsored numerous different shows. He's been kind of all over a few different lives. You'd be remiss, would be a good word, if you didn't know who we're talking about today. So we're talking with Alex Lyons of True Braid. So we're going to learn a lot today about Braid and Alex and the whole gamut. So I hope you're ready. You're listening to Finding Demo Surf Fishing. Here we go. Apparently, I can't control my audio lines today. Oh, it's going to be a good show. Don't worry. I'll get control of this whole thing. Hope you all are doing well wherever you are today, wherever you're listening to this. It's going to be a good day. So that's what I said earlier. We're talking with Alex Lyons of True Braid. If you haven't heard about it, please go take a look at his website. It is loaded with information about the braid, and you're going to learn a ton here today on the show about it. I didn't know several things about the company until I finally got a chance to talk to Alex offline and learned a ton, and I was sold right then and there. And I've ordered several spools and have them all spooled up except for one that's on the list of things to do still. And I haven't had a problem with it. I'm loving the stuff. It's not fading. Good deal. So without me constantly taking this over by me talking about it, let's bring them on. Alex, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate you inviting me on and getting me a little burst in the podcast world. Seems like a lot of fun. You've got an awesome show.
Thanks, man. Well, you have an awesome story. I wish I could have captured the original phone call that we had starting out, from your fishing experience. And it's just like, if you could have seen my face, it was just that kind of, oh, man, that sounds so cool. I wish I fished like that. Oh, I wish I had gone there and fished like that. It's just, and everything you've done from then has just been, not to gush on you, but it's like you touch it and it turns to gold. So, hell of a job, man. Good stuff.
Well, that's giving me probably more credit than I deserve, but I think it's been a combination of passion and ingenuity and trying to affect change when you see an area for change being due. So I appreciate that, and I'm happy to talk about anything you want to hear and share anything that I can about the process and about the braid and about how we got to where we are today.
All right, well, let's dig into it. So again, like we started, everybody, if you head on over to truebraid.com after this show, or in the background because you're probably listening to it because you downloaded it because you're awesome, or you're streaming it and it lets you, you can get a lot of the information on there too, and you can see all the products that we're talking about. So let's back it way up into the younger years of Mr. Alex Lyons. What got you into fishing?
Uh, that's probably a pretty cliche answer. My old man, who does not have many skills with fishing, would bring me fishing to a local pond, and we would throw some worms and some bobbers. Probably the biggest memory of that when I was a young kid was we had an argument in that it took probably a couple of years of my first fishing experiences just going for bass and sunfish in the ponds of Massachusetts, where I started saying I want a spinning reel. He would always give me a little kitty push button reel. Like many fathers, they don't want to deal with untangling the mess. But after a couple of years, I begged him and begged him and begged him. He finally got me a spinning reel. And I would, go fishing with him. Really, though, I attribute to how I got into fishing was a couple of childhood friends of mine. Two of my best friends when I was in grade school and through high school. They were twins, and they were my two closest friends, and they were big fishermen. Their dad was a huge smallmouth bass fisherman up in Vermont. They would invite me to come on the kayak with them on the Charles River in Massachusetts, and that's kind of pretty memorable point. It's like where I learned to tie my fisherman's knot. And from there, we used to just ride our bikes around kind of the suburbs of Massachusetts when we were in grade school with our fishing poles on our back. Can't tell you how many eyes I broke on my fishing rod by getting it stuck in the spokes of my bicycle. Um, but that's what we would do all day. We would just ride around on the weekends or after school and just go hit all the local ponds on our bikes. Those two friends of mine are really what kind of got me into fishing. I think my father was using it more as a keep the kid occupied for a couple of hours while mom cooked dinner. um,
Yeah.
no, we were riding around the ponds of Massachusetts and freshwater fishing, and that's how it all started. That was really the beginning. It's not a very exciting story. It's probably similar to a lot of the other people out there. That's where it all started in the suburbs of Massachusetts, jumping over fences, winning over neighbors to allow them to finish, let us fish in the neighborhood pond.
Yeah. So you started up in Mass there. Well, let's go with that one here. So what got you into the surf and saltwater fishing?
When I got a little bit older, my parents started renting a beach house on Cape Cod for a week during the summer. Cape Cod is one of the most magical places in the world. If you haven't been, I encourage you to take a trip up there sometime. But when you're a young kid, it could seem pretty boring when you're out there, you've got no friends, and you're on a family vacation for a week. So I used that to kill some time with going fishing and would take my freshwater poles with me and my freshwater lures,
Yeah.
and that's all I had. And I would just go and walk down to wherever beach I was closest to and throw it out there, and most of the time get really excited for hooking some seaweed and thought I had some fish. But as time went on, learned more, talked with other people out there. When I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, I hooked into like a 24-inch striper
Ooh.
and brought it in probably on like, and full disclosure, I was probably using like 20-pound mono at the time, and pulled in like this striper. And from there, like my eyes lit up. I was like, this was the coolest thing in the world. From there, I was like, I want to catch big fish from the jetty, catch more stripers. So that's what kind of got me into surf fishing at a young age. I was very fortunate enough to be able to vacation out there, do that. And that's kind of where the surf fishing journey began.
Not a bad place to start. I mean, you kind of you set the bar nice and high,
Like I
right?
said,
Getting
I
a
was very
striper.
fortunate.
Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff, man. I mean,
Well, the fish gets bigger every time I tell this story.
that's fair. Yeah, as it should. It has to. When you were 6 years old, it's inflation of life. You're
I
allowed to
couldn't
inflate it.
hold it closer to the camera lens, so all I could do was exaggerate the length.
Back on the old 35 millimeters. Yeah, I got you. Well, cool.
The underwater film camera.
Yeah, the big eye. Yeah, yeah. So you started it there.
Our
Okay.
under 30 audience won't relate.
No, no. Like, what are you guys talking about? You just Google it. Just it's okay. The computer might ask. Are you sure you're okay? For your age verification, there, going way back. So you started up in New England, up in Mass. Okay, out of the Cape. Cool. You've done a lot of fishing because now you're down in the Virginia D.C. area. And
Hmm.
when we were talking offline, you've done a lot of fishing up and down the East Coast, amongst other places. Normally, I save this question for later, but I really want to ask, where has been your favorite place to fish so far in your life?
So I probably reread that question when you asked it to me first. And that's a really difficult thing to say because I will say that I've been fortunate enough that things have progressed 20 years later or so, 25 years later. I have a small 19-foot Boston whaler. I take that out to Monomoy, and Monomoy is basically the southernmost tip of Cape Cod. So the tip of Monomoy basically is kissing the tip of Nantucket Island.
Yep.
And out there is some of the most, I mean, it's just majestic. All right. And like what you hit are what we call rips. These are just rip currents that you'll get about 100 to 200 yards off the shore. So the beauty about Cape Cod and Massachusetts is you have the continental shelf. So unlike other parts of the East Coast, unlike Florida and other places in the country where you have to travel a good amount offshore to get to deeper waters, you can 50, 60, 100 yards offshore, the continental shelf just drops, right? And so you go from 2 feet of water to 60, 70, 80, 100 feet of water in a matter of feet, which is a really unique situation. That mixed with just the absolute beauty of the landscape and the sea lions and honestly, you'll see some great whites trolling around out there.
Yeah, you do.
But you hit these rips, and it is a striper frenzy. So to answer your question, my favorite place to fish is probably on the southern point of the outermost cape for striper, and a very, very close second, which I've been fortunate enough to explore for the past 3 years. I've gone down to the Gulf and I've fished from Marco Island all the way up to Boca Grande. I stay away from anything north of that because plenty of people on this podcast probably know that traffic is probably terrible in the Tampa region.
Yeah.
And so anywhere from Marco Island, not so much Naples or Bonita Springs because it's pretty concentrated with tough access there. But Sanibel and Captiva. Sanibel and Captiva are a very close second.
Nice.
That said, I've never fished the Gulf Shores. I've never fished Pensacola. I've never fished Perdido. I've never fished those areas, which I plan to change in the next 6 months. There's still room for placeholders for sure.
Hey, man, it's going to be great to have you down here and come fishing. And I know a lot of us
I
here
can't
are
wait, man. I
excited
can't
for it.
wait.
Well, let's move into the technical side of this game then of fishing, and then we're going to get into the company stuff. You're planning out hey, I'm going fishing this Saturday. How do you plan your fishing day?
Well, it's obviously relative. So where I am now, because I love fishing so much, I drive 3+ hours and I go out to a place called Assateague Island. So from where I am on the DC border to get to the eastern shore of Maryland, just south of Ocean City, is a place called Assateague Island, which is very, very, very similar to the Outer Banks. In 29, no, in 2020, that kind of the start of the summer of 2020 when things were kind of closed at that point in time. I picked up a little truck camper to throw on the bed of my Tundra, and so that I could go camp out at the beach. And so ever since then, about every weekend between June and September, we load up the camper and we go out to Assateague Island, which is a phenomenal place. If you're ever in the area for whatever reason and you want to go to an awesome beach and you want to go surf fishing, I highly recommend it. Wild horses running, like I said, it's very similar to the Outer Banks. It's very much a surf fisherman's paradise location. What I do is I will get all my rigs set up. I usually go out there with about 7 rods, all for different applications. I usually have about 2 bait rods. About I have 2 bait rods. I have one kind of lure rod, like a casting rod, if you ever see a blitz in the surf. And then I've got 3 surf rods for heavy baits and weights. And then I've got one Penn conventional rod for kayaking out deep drop baits. So I will get all of those rigged up with secondary or tertiary or third, rigs to go and load them up. And so when I get out there, we're ready to go. Put the spikes in the sand. I'll usually set up, as you guys know, I usually set up the bait rods first, work my way out to the bigger surf casting rods. I use a 9, 10, and 12-foot surf casting rod with their respective reels on them. And then I've got my conventional heavy duty rod for kayaking out the baits. So all of that's done ahead of time. Nobody wants to be out in the wind fiddling around with tying rigs and whatnot. That's kind of usually my setup. And so then I'll always have the one rod, the casting rod set up with a spoon, or personal favorite of mine. I'm not trying to promote them or anything, but Island X Lures. He's a great guy. He hand paints these out of Nantucket Island. I use his pencil jigs, his floating pencils, and I've never had more success with throwing a lure in the surf with any. I mean, I've thrown spoons, I've thrown gulps, I've thrown jigs, I've thrown everything, and these things just always consistently perform. But I always have one of those tied up, and then I will have my big stuff ready to chunk some bigger baits out, and so that's kind of the setup. I'm a seven rods, 7 to 8 rods, two for bait, one for casting, three for surf casting, and then the one conventional for deep dropping.
That's bringing a lot of artillery. I like it.
You're bringing a little house out there with you to the beach to sleep out there for 48 hours. So, you
Yeah, it's
know.
smart. I mean, it's smart. Like you said, you're going out there, you know what you're doing. It's a 3 hour haul. It's not a quick little jaunt. I mean, that's a run, and you have everything you need. So that's really good and really smart. I mean, a lot of people I think would be like, "Yep, I need to do it that way." You said it was Island X lures.
Island X, yeah.
Okay.
They're predominantly on Instagram. I convinced them to get on TikTok a couple of weeks ago, but I think they just have such a great presence with Facebook and Instagram, and they have such a loyal following. I mean, like, I'm not just promoting them because like the stuff just works.
Yeah.
And like if you follow their page, like they're crushing blues, they are crushing stripe. Like the stripers just eat these things up. So a funny story is I always tell them this, and I first tried his lures the summer of 2020, before like True Braid was even True Braid. And I bought a couple of them, and I brought them out. And me and my older brother were out on our whaler, and we were off of Monomoy. And so I tied one up on each of our boat rods, and I threw one out, and just a bluefish just came up and crushed it. And so like my brother looks at me as I'm reeling it in and fighting it, and he's like, "All right, I'll take it. I'll throw it out there." Throws that, and so like back to back first cast, like these things had never hit the water before, and I was like, "All right, something's going on here." I didn't get out last summer as much as I wanted to. I think I only went down to the Cape once, and for a variety of reasons, I wasn't able to do much fishing while I was there. And then I linked up with him probably like back in May, like was like reached out to him, like sent him like a picture of like True Braid with like his pencils next to it. And I was like, I'm about to get like ready to do some damage up on Cape Cod. It was like right after I think Matt and Ninja Tackle and Bama and those guys like had just come back from the canal, and I was like, and they were like hyping me up because I knew I was going to be heading to the Cape soon. And then he got right back and he's like, "Dude, like that's awesome, thank you so much." And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to send you some braid." And he's like, "Hell yeah, like send me some braid. I'll send you some of my new squids that I just put out this year. They've been killing it up there." So I sent him a spool. He sent me way more than I deserved in return. He sent me like five of his pencils, which was like 3 times the value of the spool I sent him. Thanks, man. And I went out and I went off like just I was just screwing around. I just went on a little pond off of the street that I'm on the Cape, and I literally toss it out there. And I'm just gonna like throw this. I just want to make sure my reel's good. I just want to see how this comes off the thing. Like I wasn't even fishing that calf, and literally a striper just hit it right away. And I was like, I've got to let him know. Like, this is ridiculous. I just went 3 for 3 first cast on 3 different lures with your product. So, like, I'm not
Yeah.
selling it. I'm just telling you
That's a
exactly, like,
win.
all right, that like, I'm not using anything else. Like, so as I go off on a tangent here about him, if anybody's interested, his floating pencils, he's also got some minnows that he does, but like, this is an old school, original Nantucket born and bred guy who probably knows surf fishing better than me at least. He's been making some huge waves across the surf fishing community, especially in New England over the last couple of years. So I would encourage you to check him out.
I'm already on the website.
That's
No,
what I'm saying. I
these
mean,
pencils, I mean, it looks smart. They got the beads in there. The colors look great. These
the
things are,
Hellfires 180s,
yeah,
they've got the beads in them. Just their balance of them in the water, like is really what make most pencils will just like float straight stiff across the surface. Like, but with his bead and his little weight in there, like they just dip down enough. And he uses all these inline circle hooks too. I gotta respect the fact that you don't need 9 hooks on a lure to catch a fish. It's good for the fish. It's great fishing. I've probably thrown 200 casts with them. I probably caught about 10 to 15 fish with them myself. My brother's caught a handful over the course of the last 2 years. I've never had a strike and lost a fish. So, it just kind of serves to that fact that, like, you just don't need these ridiculous treble hooks on everything. But again, I'm a big bait guy. I don't throw artificials as often as most. It's all relative. But if I am, I'm throwing him.
Oh, hey, what works works. And that I've said that so many times to people. It doesn't matter what the company is. If it works for you and you're going to run with it, run with it. So, and the cool part was, I mean, if we're being technically on time, you nailed like the next 3 questions, so it worked out really well.
Hey,
You
well, if we
packaged
can
it
be
up.
efficient in every, if we can be efficient in every aspect of the way, then good for us.
Yeah, yeah, man. That's
But no, but to your point though, it's like, that's the thing, especially when I get on lives or I communicate with people, and someone is like, I've used Power Pro or another brand all my life and never had a problem, and it's like, that's not. I'm not gonna sit there and say, well, you need to try my braid because it's God's gift to Earth. No, it's like, go with what you're comfortable with. If you want to give it a shot and try something new that's gonna be a lot less expensive and in my opinion perform pretty similar, give it a try. But I'm not going to sit there and say these other brands are garbage and mine's the greatest thing in the world. We're not, this isn't Tesla versus Chrysler. Just, hey, if you want to spend less and try something new, then this is an option. But if this other brand of braid is just working for you and every time you throw it, it's like you were blessed by the fish gods and you never lose a fish and you're always killing it, then stay with that, man. And like, more power to you. Like you said, go with what you're comfortable with.
yeah.
But if you're willing to try something and break out of your comfort zone, there you go.
Well, it's perfect that you bring it up, man. You gave us the perfect segue of time. It is your 25-minute bait check. First bait check of the show. All right. I'm always loving these. This first bait check has been brought to you by Ninja Tackle. Head on over to ninjatackleva.com and get yourself set up with all the good gear they've got. Matt has a bunch of rods, rigs, and everything in reels that you could possibly need. So head on over to ninjatackleva.com. Get yourself set up for success with some awesome gear. Thank you, Ninja Tackle, for always being the team here. I love you guys. Moving into that one, so you gave me a great segue, but before I get to the company, I have 2 last questions, and then we're going to get into the whole thing with True Braid. What is your favorite fish to catch?
Oof. So it's funny you bring this up because I obviously at this point, I was kind of grew up in New England. I will say definitively that at this point in time, my favorite fish to catch is a striper.
Mm-hmm.
And I may be in Maryland where people incorrectly refer to them as quote rockfish, and I think the proper term is a striped bass. But if you're catching them and you're in the areas that you catch them, they're striper, and they are the most fun fish to catch.
You had to
They
throw
are
the accent in, didn't you? You had to throw it in there.
they are wicked fun to catch,
There you
hands
go.
down. They are so much fun, and it is the most rewarding experience to get them. That said, as being a Maryland resident for the last 10 or so years and fishing a lot of Maryland, I this June got rewarded with catching a 40-inch and a 50, I'll say a 50.5-inch redfish from the surf.
Holy crap, dude.
And if it wasn't for like my affinity for stripers, and just like my childhood memories and everything, like it is it became a close rival. And now I've never caught a striper bigger than 30 inches in my life. I know guys who have fished out on acetique for 20 years searching for a bull drum in the 50 range or high 40 ranges. And it's few and far between. For some reason, the migration patterns and whatnot are completely out of whack. And I was graced with these two fish at the end of June. And I got to tell you what, if I don't catch another striper soon, they're easily going to become my favorite fish to catch.
And congratulations on being in the 50 club, man. I'm not there. You nailed the 40 club and the 50 club in a day. That's freaking amazing.
In the same hole,
Oh, that's
in the same
glorious.
hole, literally. And but like I said, I camp out there for. I was out there. The first one came Friday at 10:30 p.m. The second one came Saturday around 9 p.m. in
Oh,
the same hole, the same tide. It was just like I'm still shook from it.
yeah.
I still can't believe it. I go back to my phone, I look at the pictures, and I'm still just like, I'm like, I think I blacked out during the entire experience.
No.
And I was such in disbelief. I was like, I knew I was catching like some big rays during the day, like just things just rip and drag. And I hooked up to this thing, and like I was like, nah, there's no way. The way that things thinks this thing is running, I was like, I don't think it's a black tip. And I was like, it didn't even cross my mind that this was going to be a bull red. I was like looking to my wife, and she's got the phone and the light because it's dark, and I'm like, sweetie, it's probably a ray. It's probably a ray. And then like the pole just starts like doing a bunch of head shakes on the retrieve, and I'm like, it's gotta be a weird ray, like, or maybe it's a shark or something. And then I see it crash in like the first break, and I'm like, I looked to her, and I just like I lost it, absolutely lost. I'm surprised I didn't lose the fish because I was probably dancing so much with the pole. But it was, I mean, you guys can hook these things, and the guys out in the Outer Banks can hook these things on the regular. I mean, maybe not like huge ones down there, but you see Salt Squatch pulling in 40 plusers. You've got one. I saw Frank from Saltwater Yankees crush one early on. So like, but to be out here in this area and get, it was just it was unforgettable.
Dude, that's so great. Congratulations, man.
So I think at the end of the day, I might be cheating on stripers here.
Well, when you get down to Florida, it'll just be a permanent. It is what it is.
So spoiled.
Well, now that we've talked about that good stuff, let's move into the fun one. What is True Braid?
What is True Braid? That's an open-ended question.
Yeah, I'm good at those.
So I just wanted to. So I juggled with what to call this company, probably more so than you would think, and what I kind of wanted the brand and the image to be. And I obviously have a lot of experience reviewing other brands and comparing other brands and whatnot. And at the end of the day, most companies, most comparable companies are not just braid. A lot of them have monofilaments and fluorocarbons, tackles, things like that. And I wanted to just be like, hey, I'm your stop for braid. And if you look at my packaging and if you look at what I've kind of done to it, I wanted to just be, as it says, no frills. I didn't want to convolute the brand with I'm abrasion resistant, I'm no stretch, I'm no memory, I'm hold up and toughest, I'm do all these things. It's like, yes, that's inherent with braided fishing line. If you're buying braided fishing line, you're expecting it not to stretch. You're expecting it to be abrasion resistant. You're expecting it to be mostly this day and age 8 strands. There's still some 4 strands out there. You know, you're expecting it to be UV resistant. You're expecting it to have color options. So you don't need to, you know, I didn't want to just convolute everything with what everybody already expects braid to be. I just wanted to say, like, listen, this is just true braid. So I went back and forth with it. I had a lot of different, you know, ideas of it, but you know, I think some of the later questions will help define that a little better. But what is it? It's just quality, reliable, braided fishing line that is not priced like there's a monopoly on the fishing line market. And you know, I think this is a good segue. And you tell me, Brian, should I just kind of go in of how I kind of came to this point?
Yeah, man. I mean, you know the route we're running here, and you're already on a great path. So yeah, give us the inspiration to create True Braid. Hell yeah, let's hear it.
And that'll feed into why it just became True Braid. You know, is like, so I unfortunately kind of put down my fishing pole for too many years. And in 2019 was working, I was getting married, I was starting I have other companies and other industries, not in the fishing industry or anything like that, but you know, I have my day job and I put it down for too long, and I hadn't gone home to see my folks in Cape Cod or Massachusetts in like 5+ years. And so, like in 2019, I got back into it and started picking the pole up again. And it was really like in the like May, June of 2020, you know, other things were going on in the world that kind of was like, hey, if everything shut down, I want to get out and go to the beach and go fishing. And I started kind of getting more into like big game fishing and like land-based shark fishing at that time. And so I was getting my bearings and I was getting like spool. I mean, like up until that point, I you know gone striper fish. I was a striper fisherman. I was a you know a freshwater bass fisherman. You know, fish for flounders and stuff in the estuaries of Cape Cod and stuff. But then I was like, I wanted more excitement. I wanted to change it up a little bit, and I started learning more about like land-based shark fishing. So I started doing that in 2020, and obviously, you know, I was inexperienced, and so I was getting spooled out. I was getting cut off. I was like losing a lot of braid, and at the end of the day, I was like, this is becoming the most expensive part of my fishing experience. I would get spooled out or whatnot, and then I'd go and I'd have to scour to find a 500 to 1,000 yard spool of fishing line that, and it was like cost me like $200. I go to Bass Pro or whatever, and I was like, this is just like ridiculous to the point where it was almost stopping me from fishing. And one really memorable moment was I was actually out on Assateague, and I wasn't far from the entrance for the off-road vehicle place, and I saw some like kid like walking by, while and he was like ducking under my poles, and he like had a backpack and he had like 2 poles in his hand, and one was a bait rod, one was a casting rod, and he must have been like 13 or something. And I was like, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, he like was walking right by me. I'm like, what's up, man? Like, how'd you do? Did you catch anything? He's like, no, I got spooled out. And I was like, man, like that's too bad. Like, why didn't you like keep fishing? He's like, well, I didn't have any more line. And I was like, he's like, I literally have to like go save up all week to like get some more line. I was like, dude, you're telling me. Like, I was like, but you're not. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, all right, bud, like, you know, like I had a spool, not True Braid at the time. I was like, here, man, take this and like go fish and have fun. And like his eyes lit up and whatnot. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, why does this stuff cost so much? So I basically kind of like took that experience, went to like the drawing board, and you know, I've done other ventures and things in the past. I'm a big fisherman. I just kind of started researching it and looking into it, and reverse engineered it. Was like, all right, like I just want to basically buy a bulk order. I was like, I just never want to deal with buying braided fishing line. It was like it was also like right after I got back from my first trip down to Sanibel Islands, and I took my brother, and you know like we got in like a fight because like he spooled out, like he screwed up this fish, and lost my entire spool. And I was like, you owe me like $50, like, and like all like, and I like, it all kind of stemmed from like those kind of couple of experiences. And so I basically just kind of learned as much as I could, kind of put my head in the sand for a little while. And I was like, all right, I just want to like buy like 50 spools of braid and just never have to worry about buying braid again. And then, one thing led to another. My friends started asking me for it, friends of friends, and, family and whatnot. And then, friends of friends are like, hey, can so and so like buy a spool? Like, what's it cost? Like, blah, 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 blah. And then my buddy comes along. He's like, hey, man, like, why don't you just sell it? And I was like, I don't know anything about that. It's like, here's, steps 1, 2, and 3, help you with the website. I was like, all right, well, if I can get this initial wholesale order to pay for itself amongst you guys, that's great. And then I really kind of got like captivated by it. I was like, everybody, a lot of people wanted it, and I could offer it at a price that was really competitive compared to other brands. I think the stories of, hey man, I used your braid and caught this fish, or hey man, like I really love your braid. And this, I'm talking like before I even came to True Braid. And it was just unmarked spools that I had, worked out with my production partner. Then from where I went from there, I think I really have the community to thank for it. It was never kind of a really defined plan. I think it was the community growing it organically and me just kind of responding to an awesome community. So I really think True Braid came about because, one, the product is just simple. You get what you see, but also it was kind of evolved from a very organic group of passionate fishermen who I've been lucky to know and then lucky to expand out to because of it. And that's really, in a nutshell, the story of how True Braid came to be.
It's a hell of a run, man. But I get it because you're
Closing
right.
argument.
It's perfect. I mean, you did everything you could possibly do, and that's phenomenal. And you've built something, and like you said, I mean, you do have a great cult-like following, and it's growing, and it's community-based, and it's people all talking to each other about it. It's all together, and that is perfect. I hate to use the word, but it really is. You done good, sir. You done good.
Like I said, I mean, I feel like I said, I think I've done good, but I would be remiss to say that it wasn't a group effort by everybody out there. Like True Braid exists because of all of you. And I think, there's a lot of companies out there, like smaller guys, that could very well say the same thing if they had the opportunity to. But it's just an evolution of what the people wanted. And, it was what I wanted, and people agreed that that's what they wanted too. And then I wanted to learn how to, offer it. The paperwork and the registrations and the taxes aren't fun, but at the end of the day, I'm still getting, I still get braid for a good price, and I can offer it to other people for a good price. But it's really a community effort, and that's what makes this so special. And that's why I haven't had to spend money to run expensive advertisements. The most expensive advertisement, I have is sending a spool to a deserving individual to give it a try and to provide me with their honest review. The day and age and how social media works, certainly get what you offer in that respect. And honestly, I mean, like I put it out there, and I'm like, hey man, if you don't like it, then all I ask is you just be honest with it. And like you can put out a bad review, you can put out a bad TikTok video if you want, and be like, this is why, but just say why, and then give me a opportunity to respond or to make it right. For example, there's this guy, Justin Hardigan. I think he's in southern Texas or maybe Louisiana. I think actually Louisiana. And I ran into him somehow like early on, and he was like, "Hey man, so I started a reel repair service on the side a little while back. A lot of people keep asking me, can I spool your reel when I'm done fixing it? It's like looking for like a partner that might be able to like do wholesale." And I was like, well, that sounds awesome. I just started off, and you seem like a big buyer. Don't really know much about you, but great. And so he's like, yeah, let me try it out. So I sent him like one of the first batch spools I ever put out 6 months ago, like for retail, not for like personal and friends and family. He was like, yeah, man, I like threw you 20 pounds and I boat flipped twice, broke off. I'm not gonna like publicly shame you or anything, but like I can't really get behind the braid. And I was like, dude, that's really odd. Would you be willing to give it another shot? And I was like, would you also be willing to, like, do you have anything left on the spool that I gave you? He was like, yeah, I probably got like 50 yards left on it. I'm like, all right, here's a return label. Can you send that back to me? I'm sending you a fresh spool in the morning. Would you give it another try? He's like, of course. I send him the fresh spool. He takes like a week to whatever, sends it back to me. I don't, I send him the new spool. And he's like, I went out there yesterday. I hit like 5 reds all in the same oyster flat. I mean, I was dragging this thing through barbed wire and I still boat flipped all of them and it worked perfectly. I was like,
Nice.
out of all the people I mean, every production run's going to get one shoddy spool. Like, it's just the nature of it. Like, you're putting out, 100,000 yards of braid. There's going to be like some glip usually on the front end or the back end of just, a compromised segment of it. And, even with all the testing. But anyway, I was like, of all the people, like this guy got it and he was the one who's like running a real business. That's just like an example of like the community and being willing to work with it, getting to overcome some of those obstacles. I've just been astonished. Like everyone in the community has been awesome and it's what makes it possible. And those are the reviews and that's how you make the brand or that's how you make the product better. Because of that, I don't have to spend the money on expensive advertising and expensive videographers and things like that. And in return, I can pass that savings on to the customer. I mean, you've seen my packaging. It's
Yeah.
pretty bland. Okay. But you know what? If I wanted to make it flashy and look incredible on a shelf or something, then I'd have to charge. I mean, that's going to cost me like 150 a spool more or something like that. I don't even know. I mean, I'd have to look at that. But like, would you rather spend $2 more for that spool, or would you rather just get your spool of braid and thus True Braid?
There you go. Well, now that you did that, perfect timing, man. Bait check number 2, 50 minutes in. So if you haven't got anything yet, make sure you get a new piece of bait on there. Double check it if you need to. It might be the time to move. You've been out here almost an hour, if not longer. Hopefully you've caught a bunch of fish and you're listening to this on your way home. This second bait check is brought to you by Fish Bites. Head on over to fishbites.com. Take a look at all the bait selection. You've got so many good ones to use. You've got the strips. You've got the dirty boxers. You've got all sorts of great scented infused wonderful things to throw out there. They've also got their tackle shop. You can order things online through there. Head on over again to fishbites.com. Thanks again, Fish Bites. You guys are awesome. We've nailed a lot of pieces here that you've already kind of pushed in with the questions, so I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit on you here just to kind of throw you some curveballs. With
Can I make
production,
one comment?
yeah, please.
Just on your bait check, it was I think September 12th, 2021, almost a year ago, and I've been using fish bites for ever since I saw them on the shelf. And I had a 1 or 2 aught hook on a high-low dropper rig, right, on my bait pole. And I was using like my 6.5 foot freshwater like ugly stick with like a 3,000 or 4,000 reel on it, and I had a piece of fish bites the size of my thumbnail, going for croaker, going for whiting, and I reeled in on that a 39, 40-inch black tip shark. Literally ate
Nice.
that thumbnail piece of fish bites. Carry on. That's my story.
Oh, that's good stuff right there.
I'll never forget. I'll never forget it.
Absolutely. How could you? How could you? Well, you talked about in the production piece here, and especially when talking in the price points and the savings on that. But let's go into how is braided line made?
Do you want the short, medium, or long version?
We'll go with the short. We'll go with the short. We're running on this one because we've got to get into these other ones.
It's made of quote unquote ultra high molecular weight polyethylene, right? So it's a microfiber And so you have a bunch of individual fibers, and those are fed onto individual bobbins. So we're talking 8 strands here. So we have basically 8 initial spools of individual microfilament polyethylene fiber. That goes, each one of those gets rolled onto its own bobbin. So now you've got 8 bobbins, 8 spools, if you will, filled with individual strands. So what happens then is you take those 8 bobbins and you put them onto a braiding weaving machine, right? And they usually go by the maypole braiders because it resembles a dancer dancing around a maypole. Probably our older audience will, understand that more so.
Yep.
But it's basically like, think of it like a cloth of 8 bobbins, and then what happens is they're all spun and then weaved together, like like your daughter's hair getting weaved, but instead of 2 hands, there's 8 hands, and they're all getting weaved together. Then from there, like it's all weaved, right? And there's a delicate tensile strength applied to the weaving process to get the proper grip and strength and tensile strength to it. And then from there, it's like transferred a lot slower than you might think onto like a big main spool. And like these things look like anchor rope spools or like electrical wire spools, like big bobbins. And then from there it goes to the dye process where it's basically gone through like a silicon dye, which is, instead of putting them in like a hot pot, like they're gonna go into like strung through a silicon dye, and from there they'll come out and they'll be heated to dry that dye and really kind of ingrain it into it. And then from there, it's going to get like an HVLP, like a high velocity, low pressure sprayer would be like on a car to paint the car. Except that's going to give it like a Teflon coating, right? And so it's the coating's not like a melted like wax or anything. It's a sprayed Teflon, which really gives it the strength similar to Kevlar, and it'll give it like and that's what gives it its really smooth consistency, but also like a really high strength and also its UV protection.
All right.
So, and then from there, it gets tested, and then it gets thrown onto retail size spools and shipped to your door. So
Okay.
that's kind of I don't know, was that short or medium? It's probably medium.
I'll go medium, but it was the right. I mean, it was the good info that people would like. Oh, there is a little bit more to it, because and the other thing you alluded to it earlier. You're talking about 8 strand right there. You got 8 strand. You got 4 strand. That's about the norm we see in the markets, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's 4, there's 8. The 9 is coming or has been introduced, but I don't think that it's gained traction because it's just the 9 strand doesn't seem to really give any benefits. The benefits just don't outweigh the disadvantages of a 9 strand. I'm happy to answer why if you'd like, but there's also 12 strand, and then there's also 16 strand, and like for the 9, not really, the advantages don't outweigh the disadvantages. That kind of amplifies the 12 and 16 unless you start talking hollow core, which is another kind of topic. But well, I know pretty confidently at this point, best balance of quality, superiority, and performance is going to be an 8 strand braid. So that's the only strand that True Braid will produce. We could produce a higher strand, but we will not produce a lower strand.
Okay. So 8 seems to be the magic number that gives you all the benefits.
The sweet spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, because you already nailed that one there. Because it was going to be, what does more strand mean? You've already nailed that with that part. So good stuff.
Well, what does more strand mean though? Is that you're going to get a rounder profile, and obviously you're going to get a better strength and performance. So, for example, if you get caught up in the rocks and you fray or break 1 or 2 strands, if you're on a 4 strand braid, you've only got 2 or 3 strands left to work with to fight that fish. Whereas if you're an 8 strand braid and you lose 1 or 2, you still have 6, 7 strands
Okay.
to fight that fish with. So the probability of landing that fish is amplified a lot more. So the only real advantage of a 4 strand braid is you're going to get a slightly more capacity on your reel, but it doesn't really equate, right? Because if you're going to do a 4-strand 50-pound, or let's say 4-strand 40-pound braid, you're working with a risk of 25%.
Right. That's
Like,
big. That's a big
you
number.
lose one strand, you lose 25%, as opposed to losing 1/8 if you lose a strand. So, it's just, and I feel as though in my experience of kind of surveying people, that when they are using 4-strand, they're going up in test anyways because of that. It doesn't balance out. At the end of the day, it definitely is, in our opinion, the best solid to go with this 8-strand, 100%.
That makes sense. I mean, you've been reading about it, and you've been researching it, and you came up with the lines here to come up with it. So, if 8 is that right happy medium to give you the strength, capacity, usability, all that, it absolutely makes sense. And not to mention too, with you talking about, you lose a couple here and there, at least you still have the strength to land the fish, and hopefully you found the nicks and all that piece, you can get through it. So,
Right.
no, it makes absolute sense, man. Thank you. I'm dead serious. Thank you for explaining it, because that that
And
was
it's
more
just,
with that
it has
question.
a rounder profile. It has a rounder profile, so it will mold to your reel better. Whereas like a 4-strand, it will flatten out, and it will become like much more less subtle. It'll flatten out and be like almost like, either way. There's not a whole lot of benefits to it. With the 8-strand, you're going to keep a nice uniform round profile, and it's going to fit your reel well. It's going to cast better. It's going to be smoother on your fingers, and on top of everything we just stated with abrasion and risk of losing
Mhm.
fish in tough conditions.
And you mentioned it, and I know I've seen it on the website. You mentioned hollow core. Is that already made and going to be coming out, or is that a future endeavor?
No, it's an active endeavor. It's just been taking a little bit longer for me to be comfortable with selling at retail. There's a lot more requirements to its production, and it's going to be a more expensive product. So I just am not ready to offer it retail until I am 100% confident with its final product.
Yeah.
That said, I'm like 99%.
Well, in that case, let's ask. Well, let me ask you about it, because I can get the quick one here, because I know that this is one of those ones you've already done this. What is hollow core, and what is its use?
the the short, quick answer is hollow core is just like it sounds. It's hollow cord, right? So it provides the ability for you to join your main line and your top shot or your leader with the seamless, knotless connection. And what I mean by that is you can splice your leader or your top shot or additional main line, basically any other line you can splice. And what I mean by that is you can basically send it down the center. You can thread it down the center of the hollow core line and feed it out of a desired section of length. So think of it as like putting a 1-inch copper pipe down a 2-inch copper pipe and then sending it out one end, right? But the thing about it is the way that it's weaved, what it does is it creates like a Chinese finger trap. It's basically like putting your leader into a Chinese finger trap, and you send it out the other side, and you don't have to make a knot. So what happens is once you feed it through that line with a splicing needle, and you send it out the other side, you make the connection, then it is seamlessly connected to your main line. So whether you're casting it or running it through your glides or your eyes, you're not going to have any knot getting in the way, and it's going to create, like I said, a Chinese finger trap. So the more tension that it gets between the two lines, that stronger that bond becomes. It's a really cool application. A lot of times it's used mostly for big game fishing and big grouper fishing or shark fishing and things like that. It just gives you another reduced point of failure in your setup. In that, like the FG knot is king of tying main line to leader, although it's superfluous and usually only needed in really big game applications. But in those applications, the splicing of the line really reigns king.
Okay.
So that's there's a lot of advantages to it. That's the main one, but with that comes a cost, and it's for a little bit more of a niche group of fishermen. For the majority of people out there, it's excessive and a luxury, but to other group of fishermen, it's a necessity and what they rely on.
Yeah.
So we want to offer both. We've just about got it there. I think within the next 20 to 30 days, you'll see it on the True Braid shelf.
Nice, man. Well, now that we're talking about that, so what is a weakness or strength of using braid?
The strengths have been pretty well identified throughout the course of this podcast.
Yeah.
Um, but there are weaknesses in certain applications. I think in some applications that, it's hard to say because the introduction of circle hooks has really changed that, and that this braid does not stretch. It's a very firm line. Monofilament fluorocarbon, these are polymer plastics. They stretch, right? So when you go to set a hook, you're not getting a firm hook set. You have to really set that hook. And that was really a requirement with mustard hooks and J hooks for most of people's fishing past, for the last 2 decades, 1 decade. And so you would need a little bit of elasticity to really set that hook. Whereas now circle hooks really kind of set themselves, and without elasticity, they set themselves very effectively. I would kind of jumble this in with a popular opinion to let the people kind of decide on their own. I have always thought the myth of braided fishing line, because of its color and its flotation, to defer fish. Their fish can see the flotation, they can see color, and I've always thought that was kind of not true, especially even when I'm bass fishing in the suburbs of Massachusetts and I'm going to use braided line. I'm going to tie a 3 or 4 foot leader to it. But people do think that braided line can be seen, whereas traditional monofilament or fluorocarbon cannot be seen. Monofilament and fluorocarbon is a bit thicker, well, quite a bit thicker, so you don't have to use as much of it, I guess. And it can break easier if you're caught in something where you need to terminate your leader or your line and retie and get on. But yeah, I don't have a lot of disadvantages. It's a tough question, and I'll dig deep to try to answer it. But I'd actually honestly defer that to you, Brian. What do you think? You've used a lot of fishing line in your day. What do you think what advantages could you tell me that monofilament or fluorocarbon line has, if you
Oh,
don't mind me asking?
weird. I'm getting asked a question. I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, the only Achilles heel to braid is abrasion. Really, I mean, you get caught on a piling or something like that, you're going to get a little bit more love with mono or fluoro. You're going to get a little, I mean, not a lot, a little. But we've also seen it where braid has been able to handle it. It's a weird kind of instance there. I agree with you. Braid has zero stretch. It's that perfect line for that. You got that direct 1-to-1 ratio feeling. It's all right there. What you want that line to do, oh, it's doing it. And as far as mono versus the stretch is cool, but what the question is why do you need stretch? So stretch and abrasion. If I'm firing around pilings, I mean I'm running braid. My leader will be a mono. I want to give something for the fish to have to chew on or something. I need something a little bit there to make sure that their teeth don't get me. But that doesn't really. It's not a deterrent. I want braid for strength. I know it. For me, it's there. A braid has shown me that it's a just perfect line. It's strong. It holds, and it can take a little bit more abuse as far as weight of a fish. Get me around some structure though. Yeah, you got my attention. I'll be a little worried, but not tons. There's not a lot of disadvantages to braid.
No, and I agree 100%. I don't use braid tied straight to a hook or a lure ever. There's plenty of people out there that do, but even in the whatever situation it may be where I barely need any, I'm still tying a 1 to 2 foot mono leader.
Right.
So for me, that kind of absolves the decision making there with, all the advantages that, you and I both outlined, but I'm always going to tie a leader just because I'm always going to want that sinking at the tail end of it. I'm going to want it to be virtually invisible in the water for that last couple of feet. But I also want to be able to break it off without losing a lot of line if I need to, if I get jammed up. So if you break off your leader, you only use your leader and you still got your main line and your swivel and whatnot if that's your setup. So like I said, the advantages don't really outweigh it. I don't think, just the casting ability and the smoothness of it and being able to feel every vibration of either your lure or your bait or the fish really makes it the only setup I'm going to go with.
Yeah, man. Makes sense to me. That I appreciate you being open and honest with that. A lot of people would have, kind of deferred, but that was perfect. Well, let's talk about this piece because you built this one and you've been having all these advantages and running through because you've already nailed the majority of the other questions here. What have been some bumps in the road for you?
There's a lot of a learning curve going on here. Biggest bump in the road. I think the first biggest bump was confidence in that a lot of people and friends of mine who were, from the beginning on kind of telling me I should offer this. And I just really didn't have the confidence. I was like, nah, I mean, come on. I mean, it's just, I almost, like, I loved it. I'm obviously a huge fan of it. Obviously, the confidence changed. But at the beginning of it, it was like, man, I just don't want to sell something. I'm glad you guys really like it, but I didn't have the confidence to like build a brand about it, and that was like a big mistake because I could have gotten a really early head-on start with this. And that kind of goes to anybody out there who's listening, and that if you kind of have an idea or you have a product and it works really well for you and you can stand behind it, then sell that and then gain that confidence and sell it. Because if you really like it and those closest to you really like, for example, the people that are closest to you are going to tell you if it sucks, and they'll be the first ones. I kind of had a problem with being like, you guys are just like doing this to butter me up or whatnot, and then it's like I'm getting photos of my buddies out on like their friends' boats and charters and like out there and doing and they're catching fish with it, they're loving with it, and all of that, and it just really kind of scratched. So that was a big bump, was the confidence part of it. The second part is just obviously the technical side of it is getting your product where you want it to be comfortable offering it to the public. And what I realized is that that's going to be an ongoing battle. That's something that's never really going to change. I'm always going to be reviewing my own product, looking for ways to make it better, taking in the community's response, comments, and experiences with it. I'll be completely transparent to say that, I worked on the initial offering of colors and things like that for, about 18 months before really kind of getting into offering it publicly. And I got a big demand for pink. And with the first round of it, I realized, some of the processes with new colors are going to adhere a little differently. So I got a little bit more fading with the pink line than I obviously wanted to. So not rushing the process is definitely very important, and staying true to your product. And although the community is so supportive, like I can't say enough for the community, but sometimes you get overwhelmed with their response and their requests, and you're like, all I want to do is just provide. And that makes you rush things a little bit. And so that was probably the biggest hurdle, is just kind of like being able to stay true to your company and your objective, and be sure that your products are 100% before you offer them. And that's probably why the hollow core has taken about 7 or 8 weeks longer than originally planned. But that's something that I am going to stay true to, and something I'm going to promise to my customers and to the community that I'm going to continue to do. So that's the real elephant in the room.
Dude, that is good on you right there. I mean, it's I love it, being honest and just being true to you, your company, your people. But on that pause note, one more bait check. That's right. Hopefully, you've limited it out by now. I mean, there's no way. Or you're definitely listening to this at the way home. The final bait check of today is brought to you by Sword Fishing Products. Take a look at swordfishingproducts.com. They have great fillet knives, a new bait knife. They've also got some new stuff coming out, and they always put out really good information about offshore fishing and all how they're doing things. Head on over to swordfishingproducts.com. Take a look at their gear. You will not be sorry, I promise. So now you nailed what the bumps in the roads are. You're coming down to your last two big questions here. What has been your greatest lesson learned?
Never underestimate the power of all of you.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I've said it during the podcast. I'll reiterate it now. And I think as many companies start out, I will call about 2 years ago when this really kind of started getting pen to paper an experiment. And the biggest reason why I'm talking to you, Brian Demo, tonight
Because I
on
hounded
this
you.
podcast, yes, because of the community. Because you hounded me because other people hollered my name and other people talked about it and the community talked about it and the community said, hey, we like what you have. And the people out there using True Braid have said, I really like it. I'm catching fish on it. I love that it doesn't break the bank or crush my wallet every time I need to buy a new setup for my guide or my charter or my kid or my friend or my wife or my whatever. It's like, I go out there and I spend over $100 on a new rod and reel just to get my kid or my partner something decent, or my guide service needs a new setup, and I don't have to then swallow another $150 just online to spool it up. But it's been the community. I mean, that's really what's made this possible. And if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't exist. I'd just be a guy sitting on a stockpile full of braid and use it for the rest of his life. But you guys have been the motivation to produce it more and offer it out there and get more people spooled up for less and to get out and fishing more often.
And I've said it before, and I've said it in other podcasts. I've said it online in my testimonials. I use your product. I love your product. Everything about it's been great, and I get it, man. Yeah, as soon as I heard about it and started getting to talk to you more, I fell in love with it more. So I enjoy it. I'm never going to complain about that.
Well, to dovetail on that, Brian, I know that's genuine. You know why? Because all the other products that you put out there, all the other companies that you promote or just talk about and showcase, the ones that you use, I've now used them because of that, and all of them are phenomenal. So that in itself also feeds into the confidence of my own company and my own product, because when you're saying those things about True Braid and I'm going out there and I'm trying Sword, I'm linking up with Ninja Tackle, I'm trying Fish Bites, I'm all of it, like all of these companies that you stand behind are ones that just absolutely work for me and that I also stand behind too. So I know that you're genuine and I know that you're not just doing this for notoriety. So, amen to you and thank you very, very much for all that you do and all that you contribute to this community.
Dude, you're awesome. Thank you. Well, I'm glad.
It's just the truth, man.
It's that part right there is like the backbone and the epitome of everything from where it started when I started this out as a blog, writing about stuff and telling people like, look, you got cool stuff, or hey, your product sucks. I'll be honest with you, but this is what I would fix. All that stuff. That means a lot. Seriously, coming from you. Thank you. I mean that genuinely.
I mean,
Thank you so
even
much.
the guys that you showcased at ICAST, every single guy that you showcased at ICAST, okay, I spend 20 minutes looking up, reading about, and ultimately pressing buy buttons on a lot of them
Oh no.
because I can tell you would not put somebody on on the screen unless it was something that you genuinely did your due diligence on. So, that's how all the products that you promote and all those things, I take very sincerely, and they help me, and they help those in my sphere of connection too. So I think you are due a very genuine thank you, and be reminded how much that the community and the brand and everybody involved appreciates what you're doing.
Thank you,
Because
brother.
you're doing a lot.
I appreciate you, man. Seriously, so much. All right, last question, and it's the most important one.
Hit me.
What's next for you?
So I just sold the company.
Wait, what?
I'm just kidding.
You wait till now?
I'm kidding. I'm never selling this company. It's in my blood. It's in my veins. I'm going to take it wherever myself and the community decides for it to go. What's next? There is almost an introductory period to build a foundation and to get acclimated with the community, which I think successfully has been done. If you look at other brands, even a lot of the new guys that you work with, Brian, they're not nearly as new as I am. I am very, very fresh. There's a lot of work still to be done. What is next is one, expanding product offering, and two, expanding location. So the idea of this was always been an e-commerce online. It's 2022. You can almost get something delivered to your door quicker than you decide on Monday to go to the store and get new braid or tackle, and it ends up being Tuesday, and next thing you know, you're there Wednesday. So it's a very online environment, and one of the reasons why that you can offer product at the price points that it is because you don't have huge storefronts and operations going. That said, we want to expand our product offer. We want to get into fluorocarbon because, as I mentioned a handful of times throughout the podcast, I tie True Braid on all my setups, and I always use a fluorocarbon or a monofilament leader. So I really want to be able to offer fluorocarbon in addition to braided fishing line. That said, I'm not going to rush anything. I'm going to make sure that I've got everything buttoned up before I make it available to the community. That said, I'm 90% there. And so it will be coming soon. And obviously, as you know, we are relocating from Maryland to Florida, and we want to become paired up with the right tackle distributors and the right partners. Our goal is not to be on Amazon. Our goal is not to be in every tackle store in America. Our goal is to be with every right tackle store in America. Everyone that fits the bill deserves and carries the right product because they care about their community catching fish and working with those right people. So that said, what's next still has a lot to do with what the community asks for. And so far, that's what I think it has asked for, and we're going to grow as quickly as we can without compromising quality and try to serve and repay the community that's been so good to us and exceeded our expectations since we started this. So thank you, and I can't wait to see what comes over the next 6 to 12 months. I can tell you that a guy you guys might know down there, Perdido Blaine, who has a lot to do with Pompano tournaments, has recently reached out to me, and we've agreed to become a fellow sponsor of that tournament. And with everything possible, True Braid will be there in the flesh and put a face to the product and interact with the community that's been just absolutely awesome to us.
Sweet. Look forward to seeing you, man.
Let's go.
Oh man, Alex, thank you so much for all this. So if people want to get in touch with you, I know they can go to the website truebraid.com. You're also on other social media platforms. You're on TikTok, which I love your TikToks, and all other platforms there. And if people want to reach out, how do they get in touch with you?
They can go to truebraid.com. They can email me at alex@truebraid.com. And if anybody who's listening is interested in giving True Braid a shot, they can use the promo code DEMO20 for 20% off. And if you guys actually use that code and buy it, all we're going to do is give the difference worth of braid back to Brian Demo.
Thank you so much for everything you've done, especially with this community. Thank you with all you brought with us for True Braid, and a ton of knowledge today. A lot, just so many great things. Thank you so much for taking the time.
I mean, like I'm taken back, man. I thank you. It's been an incredible opportunity. I've been following your podcasts for ever since like the late winter. When I first figured it out, you have just awesome information to provide to everybody. You've cultivated a community is I'm speechless. I mean, you guys are awesome. It's really amazing what you guys like. It must be something in the water down there. I'm speechless, man. I got nothing left to say. Thank you so much.
All right, brother.
It's been awesome, dude. And I wish you the best success. And I hope that me being on the show helps forward your own success.
Oh, thank you.
And appreciate it, man.
All right, buddy. We'll talk soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. We just got done talking with Alex Lines of True Braid. I hope this episode was some piece of it really gave you something to think about. And it's a great product. Like I said, I use it. I stand by it. I've had no problems with it, and I can be truthful and tell you that because you've seen me also spool it up on my TikTok. All right. If this episode helped you, don't forget to like it, share it out there. Somebody could use this information. Every Friday, new episode coming out. Follow us on social media. You're not going to miss anything. You're not going to miss it if you're following it. Can't miss those alerts. All right. It's been a good one. I'll talk to you soon. We'll see you.